There are also a tremendous amount of resources, milk quality, Wisconsin EDU. You go over to milking systems and you have milking, machine milking, parlor design, robotic milking, straight voltage, performance testing. If we go into parlor design, you've got training, acclimation, training staff, crowd gate, milking, how to get animals in and out, all kinds of different things there. They've really put together a lot of good resources in one place. If you're going to change your milking system, this might be a place where you want to spend some time for a dairy modernization. So the first thing we have to think about is goals. What are we trying to do here? What are the goals of this dairy business? Where do you want to go? How long do you want it to last? How many people do you want it to support? Is this going to be primary income, secondary income? Or how are you going to make your money? Are you going to do it with milk volume? Are you going to do a product? Are you going to have milk plus other things, extras in some way to keep things rolling? Things that you might want to consider. This is a list that they put together: the improved quality of life, increased family time, improved health and safety. Um, uh, Milking in a tie stall is really tough on the body, this, especially for those of us with bad knees. What are your goals for transitioning in and out? A senior partner leaving, a new partner coming in. How's that all going to work there? Goals related to labor, getting milking done quickly, better use of existing labor force, improving labor efficiency. What are your economic goals? Managing your debt load, lowering capital cost, improving profitability. So we need to sit down and kind of think through those things. This modernization, they're talking about usually improved cow comfort. So we have an older system. We take advantage of the things we've learned, put those into play. Cow comfort goes up, better stalls, better water, better feeding. With cow comfort usually comes increased dry matter intake. Uh, Labor efficiency, we usually can do about twice as many cows with the same amount of time, same amount of hours per day, and that means more income usually. Improved operator health and safety, so you're doing something here where you're kind of making your body available for the long run, and that all should lead to increase profit and improve quality of life. So you want to think about the farmstead where you are. Um, what can we do? What can't we do? How can we put this all together? And you want to start to say, okay, this is where I want my business to be. This is how I want it to operate. What physical boundaries do I have to deal with? I grew up next to a road. That certainly limited what we could and could not do. You got natural boundaries, rivers, streams, setbacks, mountains, all things that may influence what you can and can't do at a particular facilities. What do you have, and what do you plan or propose to do in the future? And you have to kind of work through the benefits and limits of the site that you have. Can you get done what you want to get done at this particular site? Or do we need to go elsewhere, either on the same farm or possibly do we need to go somewhere else? One of the things you need to consider in the business is the location the most important thing about what you're doing. This farm has been here forever, or is it the business that you want to continue? And those are two separate things. Sometimes they're in the same place, but we need to consider what's more important: the future of the business or the future of the farm. Limitations to grow. What are your limitations for growing your family dairy farm business? Things that might be limitations to growth. Here are some lists. You've got site conditions that may influence or um, restrict things in some way, your facilities, your resources, the things that have been established, parlor, the housing, the manure storage, the feed storage. Site restrictions, setbacks, zoning, neighbors, all those things may influence how much you can or can't grow. You figure those things out. So if you kind of figure out where you want to end, you kind of have to figure out how you're going to get there. And we think about building in phases. So first thing we usually do is get the milking barn in. We're increasing our income generating assets, our cows, and we have to adjust our manure storage to that. Once we get the barn in, we retrofit a parlor. We need to build feed storage. I don't know if I'd wait necessarily for that. You might want to do that first, or at least you have to increase your feed inventory. You may not be able to build new storage or the way you want to, but you need to increase your inventory before you increase your cow. We add more cow barns, we add a new parlor, we add more cow barns, we build a long-term storage. So this is kind of, okay, I know where I want to go, and these are the steps I'm going to get there. One of the things that um, we need to consider is we don't want to necessarily do it all at once. Taking a big loan out front, if you're young, there might be some advantages to that. But as you take out a big loan, it really, that first couple of years, interest kills you. And if you take out a bigger loan, it's usually longer, and you're paying interest on some things for 20 or 30 years. You want to think in 5 and 10-year increments to keep that interest load off you if you can. So one of the farms we visited with the advanced management class talked about, well, this barn built this barn, this parlor built this parlor, go expanding in stages, adding more capacity as you go through. This parlor or barn, not the best barn in the world, not the most comfortable barn, but we worked in this for 5, 10 years, and that gave us enough to build the next one as we went through. So think about steps and taking out loans in phases as you build. How much does that new freestall barn, parlor, feed storage, manure storage on a new site cost for 150 cows? So a lot of factors will influence that. Is it going to be 300, 600, 900, 1.2 million? Depends on how extensive, how fancy, how much of the work you do yourself, what kind of site work you've got, how much you have to move nature around to make it work. So there's a lot in. So our step one, we want to build a cow barn for cow comfort. Make sure we've got adequate space for all the things we've talked about: resting, eating, drinking, walking. We want to protect our cows from the severe and vital environmental conditions, the cold winter, the hot summer, the sunshine, the wind. All those things are going to put stress on the animal, and we want to avoid that if we can. We want to make sure that we have a system that limits the likelihood of injury or disease. So talk to people, do your homework, make sure you come up with a housing system. These costs in Wisconsin. This is now pushing 10 years ago. So these are budgeting numbers you can think about. So housing costs, if you're going to build a new barn for a cow, you're looking $2,000 to $3,000 per cow. Milking center, there's a number of numbers out there. Probably should check with Farm Credit. Is it still 20 to 25,000 per milking stall? How much is feed storage per cow, manure storage per cow, total capital costs, what ratios can you have, how much for a calf, how much for a heifer, um, your sizes there, how much is bedding cost, figuring those things out, your variable costs as you go through. Is it cheaper to have shavings or sand? One of the advantages of dairy modernization is what it does to your business. So we look at the column here with the pre-modernization, post-modernization, what happened to the business. So with the changing from a kind of a tie stall system to a freestall system, we're doubling the herd size. We're increasing cow comfort, so we should get more milk per cow. We're going to have more total pounds produced on the farm between the number of cows and the production per cow. It's going to give us more milk. We're going to increase our labor efficiency. We're going to cut our time in half per how many hours we spend per year per cow. And then our cows per full-time equivalent, we're looking for that 50 number for efficiency. A lot of farms are trying to push that to 60 and 70 with the new labor laws, but 35 is definitely lower than we want it to be. 50 is a historic benchmark. I think it might be sliding out of date here as we move to quantify some of those things. How many minutes per day? How many minutes per day do we spend per cow per day feeding that cow, handling that cow, handling manure per cow? So we got the blue, our pre-modernization and then post-modernization. So we see we're getting a tremendous efficiency in the feeding of cows, the handling of cows, and then the handling of manure. So almost half our time spent, more than half our time, and fairly significant, but not quite half of handling the cows. You're still going to have to do the same tasks. We hope we have a system that gets the job done a little bit better. So what about tasks in minutes per day associated with uh, milking, maintaining stalls, and milking setup and cleaning? We don't get a lot of efficiency, 20 seconds per cow there, although it does add up. Almost having minutes per cow per day with our milking. How much do we need to spend on each individual cow? We go put the machine on, go do other things. How long do we have to maintain the stall? So before modernization, 8.5 minutes per cow per day. After modernization, 4.5. We're gaining close to 4.5 minutes per day per cow with our modernization. So where do these hours come from and what does it impact? So we've got $12 an hour. That probably should be changed to 15 since that is minimum wage. You might say 18 with benefits and Social Security associated with that. So we've got these reduction of all these tasks. So it works out to 20, almost 26 hours per cow per year. And if we multiply that by $12, that gives us $310 per cow per year. If we add, say that's 18, where this is going to be $450 per cow per year in our modernization costs. So milking system throughput. Again, the blue is pre, the yellow is post. We've got the number of farms that fell into this category, so the count of farms here, and then the cows milked per person per hour. So how does that work? So you've got your mean here for your blues, you're getting 23 cows per person per hour. There's a pretty good range on that, as little as 10, as many as 57 per person per hour. If you look at the mean again associated with the post-modernization, we're doubling that again. We've got our curve that looks here, but we've got a hell of a tail on there. You're going up to almost 110 per person per hour, but your mean is down here somewhere, your average of 44 cows milked per person per hour. Step two, we're thinking about that milking facility, and this can be really a place where we can spend a lot or we can save a lot, depending on how we do things. So we're talking about that incremental step. If we can remodel a tie stall barn and use our current milk house, that's an opportunity to save a lot of money. If we can add a shell for a parlor to a tie stall, and then the tie stall becomes some sort of holding area, and we use the milk house again, or we build a new shell on a new site with a cow barn. So we go from least expensive option to the most expensive option. Sometimes there are cases where any of these three can be very. So parlor annual capital and labor costs. So we've got 120 cows, assumptions, 25,000 pounds per cow, $10, $12 per hour, 7-year payback at 5% is what we're looking for. So we compare the tie stall situation to the low cost remodeled parlor, the medium cost remodeled parlor, the high cost and new parlor, and then the automatic milking system or the robots moving through. So we've got labor costs to run these systems. So we said going from a tie stall to a modernization should half our labor. We should be twice as efficient, half as much time with each cow. What really changes here is the capital cost. So if we look at the green, we have our tie stall system. There's no capital cost. We make some changes. Huge difference in the capital cost. So you've got at least your labor costs about the same for the parlor systems, but the inputs on a capital basis is a huge difference. And so if we put a plan together that we can get by with this system or this system, that hopefully gets us to this system, we hope in a way. So cost per hundredweight per year, how much does that cost? So you have the comparisons there. You're going to have to change the milk price and labor price on that, but the relative numbers should stay the same. So payback time frame, how long are things going to take to pay back? So we're doing a tie stall where we've got the labor only. So things are going to pay back if we go through and put in a medium cost remodel. If we do it in 7 years, it's going to cost us a little short of $1 a year. 10 years, 20 years, these are your payments, but you're not saving all that much total. You've got some huge differences down here in the difference, but you've got the labor cost starts to even that stuff out. So if you could do it in 7 years, there's some real benefits to that from interest paid over time. Annual parlor throughput costs. So tie stall versus a medium versus new parlor. So you've got 25 cows per hour, which is the average there. So what are the labor costs and capital costs? You've got your medium size parlor here. If we can model it to get more animals through, the capital cost remains the same, but we've got a decrease in cost per animal as we go through. If we've got a new parlor here that gives us 60, you can see that the labor is about the same, but that capital cost, there's a huge difference between that, probably from what, 25 cents up to $1.75. So $1.50 a hundredweight difference on those. So strategies to manage a small budget for a milking center. We got to think about the space, what kind of parlor stalls you're going to have. The more hardware you have, the more moving parts you have, the more complex it is, the more it's going to cost. Milking equipment choice, can we recycle what we've got to have? Can we buy used or we have to buy new? Each of those steps up cost. Interior finish, depending on where the receiver group is and where your milk unit storage is and cleaning, they can influence dramatically what the costs of a parlor are. And then how much sweat equity are we bringing to the thing? So if we can work these all, use our brains, use our backs to get that. We should be able to get um, our cost and make it more likely to provide us with a return. So some strategies we might use the existing milk house in a new way, use the stall barn in a new way. So changing things around, adjusting, being creative, trying to use as many resources as we have. Minimize the moving the posts and the structural changes. The more we have to move around, the more we have to lift things up, the more expensive things get. We want to minimize new construction where we can. We want to add space where we can. Um, that's probably easier than building entirely new. If we just have a little wing that we add, that's going to be cheaper than buying all new. We want to think about the value of the existing facilities. How are they structurally? Are they going to stand up for 5, 10 years while we go through this transition? Is the electrical enough to get the job done? Do we have enough for fans and all the milking system and lights and things like that? Do we have the plumbing and manure handling in there that's going to make things efficient, make things cost effective? Um, Values can range. A new parlor, we're looking at $30 to $40 per square foot. So we want to think about using a stall barn in a new way. So we turn that into a free stall in some way, shape, or form. We add a new milking facility or something out here. We're going to do a milk house in a new way. We're going to add something. We're going to move things around. We're going to make things. So, how do we do things keeping a small budget? We might build it ourselves. We might build a stall in some way, shape, or form. So, our home built certainly a lot less than our dealer bought at 400 to 500 per stall. We might buy something used from somebody else as they expand. We take advantage of the good stuff they have, or if they've got a double 16 and 12 of the stalls are worth having, we some way or shape or form get that through. So we're going up in costs in some way, shape, or form. Economical new parlor. So everything from what, eight, this is like 400 a stall down here, to 10 to 15,000. What's going to get the done? What's going to meet our goals? How are we going to get things done? I'm not really sure what an auto flow is, but we're not going to work. That might be it's got to be more than that. It can't be a robot. But we think about a flat parlor, so they had the number of animal or number of farms in the study. So farm credit data from 2007, number of parlors, so average number of stalls, average number of parlors that are representative. So you've got these parallel new. How much does it cost? So going to farm credit, getting their advice on what things cost. So those new parlors are nice. They're clean. There's no problems. They're ready to go in. You can pop them in sometimes in an afternoon, but you've got opportunities for other alternatives that are much cheaper in some way. Used flat barn, swing parlor are going to be half the cost of that parallel new. So we go through, we think about cost per milking stall. This is another way to look at it. We retrofit construction, we construct new. You had 55 farms that went through this approach, 34 farms that went through this approach. You have the different costs per. So how much does it cost per stall? So flat barn, herringbone retrofit. So retrofit, definitely cheaper than building new. And our simpler designs, our flat barns are much cheaper than our more expensive traditional unit. There are lots of plans out here. This is kind of the side view. You've got the platform the cows stand on, fit in. This is probably a swing parlor. Pit you stand in. and then what it looks like from the top, or plot plan. There are lots of plans out there, lots of things you can check, one of the things you can look for. Um, Take a good look, do your research, ask around, ask people. As an example of a place that had to put in some steel girders to help lift things up, to move things around, to strengthen things up. These steel girders aren't cheap, but maybe they're cheaper than building something new. If we've got the room to send animals in and then out, that always becomes the challenge. Can the animals turn around? Can they come in? Can they leave again out the door there, moving through? So we're thinking about it on a budget. How do we get that new system together in some way, shape, or form? So recycle or use existing system in a different configuration. So a swing line milking system using the existing milking units, using the existing takeoffs. So can I bring stuff out of the milking house to a parlor and I don't have to buy new units? I don't have to create uh, a specific parlor thing there. I use an old pipeline moving through. We can buy a used milking system, buy an economical, add new technology at a later time. Again, when we're taking out bigger loans, we have to have those loans for longer periods, and really the interest just kills you. So if we don't pay interest on what these are for the entire length of the loan, we buy them, we're paying less interest, more principal. There's some real benefits to that from a cash. So here's the kind of the considerations you have to think about when you're designing. What is my milk line slope? How big is my milk line? Can I put that in my existing facilities? Can I get the milk inspector to come through and say, hey, you're doing it right? So how many units can we run? What your slope? So these are sort of the design things that you have to. The study from the University of Wisconsin, what did they do? The parlor stalls. There were a whole lot of people that bought new, and it really comes down to uh, the how good, a lot of people use the parlors till there's nothing much left. So that probably explains why there's not a lot of used. Some sort of combination where we buy new stuff, buy old stuff where we can. Uh, no, this is home built. Then the combination is not really well represented. The milking equipment, there's probably more opportunity to take advantage of the used stuff in that market. So more than half incorporated at least some used equipment into their new parlor, or the different. We're probably bringing the units out um, on a daily basis and taking them back into the milk house each. So as we get more and more complicated, automatic, I think we got automatic takeoffs here. More and more things happening in the parlor, our costs go up. So one of the things we have to think about when we're budgeting is where the receiver group, the receiver jar is going to be, and where are we going to store and clean our milking units. If you have your milking units out in the milk house, you clean them there, bring them out, and hook them up into a parlor. We don't need to finish that interior of the parlor. We have a much cleaner, we don't have to worry so much about the cleaner environment. We're thinking about tie stall. We don't have to, the barn isn't spotless and all that stuff. So if we can relocate the receiver group in the milk house, uh, make something toward the end, clean those units in the milking house, move those, basically have a dry parlor, we can definitely keep the costs down. We're thinking about um, reducing costs. So keeping that receiver group through the wall. So basically, you're just shortening up the old pipeline, or at least we hope, and bring our units back into the milk house. cleaning our units in the milk house. All those things can help move things through. There are also some places that allow you to put certain things or certain clean spots in the parlor to reduce the cost there. Um, some low line receiver group in the parlor. So again, you're moving things out. You have a higher level of inspection, more things that have to happen to comply to regulations. A dry parlor where you're bringing out your units every time. That's going to keep your costs down. No receiver group. You've got a high pipeline here that's going to slope and take the milk right to the milk house, which should be right next door. So sort of retrofitting our barn, we put in some girders, maybe lift up the ceiling, we dig a pit, hopefully everything works out. So the more we can do in the milk house, better off we are. As we add the receiver group to the parlor, we're going to increase our low line, cleaning the units in the parlor. That's going to move retrofit, lots of different. So one of the things we want to do if we're going to try to keep the cost down is do as much as we can ourselves or sweat equity. We use the skills we have. Most of us can do demolition without much trouble. Carpentry, welding, concrete. It depends on the skill sets, but depends on also how pretty you want things to look at. I can do a lot of those things, but it won't look as pretty if somebody else does it. Friends and neighbors, bringing them in, trading out things, having a parlor raising event. If you've got a whole lot of people and you can organize them in an afternoon to get the work done, there's an opportunity to keep your low cost parlor. It can be done. It has been done. We need to calculate how many cows we need to put through the parlor and then calculate a budget based on that number of cows. So start with the number of cows that you want to put through, how fast, and then try to come up with a design that's going to get that job done. Moving forward, how much can you do yourself? What do you want to achieve? How much do you want to owe the banker at the end of the day? So those together. So challenges are to keep it low cost. If you don't plan and you don't do the design work, you're gonna run into higher costs. The more thinking you do up front, the lower your costs will be. Know what you want, know what you need. Make sure that all works. You're in charge. Make sure if somebody else is in charge, it's not going to happen, and it's probably going to be to their benefit. So look around, go visit, find time. Wintertime's a great time for doing that. Checking the neighbors. What do you got? What do you got? Find a equipment dealers willing to work with you. They're not going to sell you something off the shelf, but they're willing to sell you, okay, I can find this, or we're upgrading over here. We can take this from there. Find contracts that are willing to work with you. You're in charge. Have them. I need you to subcontract doing these things. So that's this discussion. For some of you, this may be important. For other of you, it might not be so much. But as we think about going forward, remember this pays for the next one in some way, shape, or form. Think about that 5 to 10 year turnaround and put as little cost as you can, trying to keep those loans 7 to 10 years. And you really don't get killed with interest. It doesn't kill your flat cash flow.